out to see if this is working before we get too in depth with it. Hello. I think it's working. Alright, we're here. Big video, as not only is this is a Ring of Honor TV review, episode number 137, but this is also a 2025 AEW WrestleDream Preview. Two quick notes before we get into it. Thing one, if you watched last week's video, or last week's ROH review, hopefully you did, mentioned I was getting a new headset in. And I have a new headset in, and I'm using it here right now. I enjoy it. The only real complaint is it kind of runs the battery on my controller down quickly, but it's not bad. So that's my review of it right now. The other thing, as I was talking a lot about Fight Forever last week, I finally purchased the Season 4 Season Pass. So we have a couple of new additions to this game that is over 2 years old, hilariously enough. Y'all might care about that. If you don't, you're here for the ROH review. You're here for the WrestleDream preview. We're going to get into it right now. I will say we had a good streak of ROH episodes. This week was not as good as the previous weeks, but at least all the competitors are kind of like known talent, and nothing really felt like a squash match this week, but it was a quick episode nonetheless. Whenever this is AEW pay-per-view week, you know, the episodes kind of feel weird and quicker, so that's what this episode kind of felt like. The opening contest was Sydney Akeem versus Alex Zane. We got a fast-paced start that slows down with a chop exchange. We got a leg drop off of the second rope by Zane, with Akeem moving out of the way of a dive to the outside and follows it up with his own. We get back-and-forth forearms in the ring. Zane misses on a somersault off of the top rope, and Akeem surprisingly picks up the win after a cartwheel cutter. I thought that Zane would pick up the victory, especially because every time Alex Zane competes in ROH, they always mention that he has a victory over Bandito and challenge Bandito for the world title. So, bit of an upset in my eyes. Next matchup, Isla Dawn and the Grizzled Young Veterans taking on Gabriel Arios, Javi, and Carolina Cruz. This is Isla Dawn's Ring of Honor debut, and they were interviewing her prior to the match, but she did not get too in-depth with it as she was interrupted by the Premier athletes, wondering why they just interview anyone nowadays, and that if she needed any help, that they would be willing to help her, but it's kind of sarcasm, and she had her own help in the Grizzled Young Veterans. Drake and Javi start the matchup off with frequent tags being made. The Grizzled Young Veterans hit a total elimination, while Dawn has a submission in to pick up the quick victory, but they have no chance to celebrate as the Premier athletes look for retribution and attack them after the matchup. Diamante takes on Aaliyah James up next. Diamante targets the left arm from the beginning portion of the bout. James hits a super kick and a fisherwoman suplex that gets a 2 count. We got a series of pins afterwards between the two, with Diamante landing a German suplex to pick up the victory. Then we get a quick advertisement that on October 29th, which is the Wednesday before Halloween, Halloween is October 31st on the Friday, October 29th, they will be taping Bandito versus Mascarada Dorada 2, which is the Ring of Honor World Title match from Global Wars Mexico. So, with them advertising it and making note of it, I imagine that it will air on a future ROH. They didn't really clarify it, but to mention it, you know, I kind of would think that would be the case. But a pretty big ROH matchup taking place on October 29th. Wheeler Yuta takes on main man Oro up next, in a matchup that went quite a while. It had to have been the longest matchup on this episode. Yuta tries to remind the referee that he has 2-5 when he's trapped Oro in the corner, but Oro hits him with a forearm. Oro is tossed to the outside, where he's met with a Marina Shafir judo toss. We get a series of elbows by Yuta, a moonsault and capo kick by Oro that gets a 2 count. Yuta applies an armbar in the center of the ring with Oro getting out, and then he applies a counter mutilation that Oro also gets out of. Oro hits a tope to the outside, but the referee is distracted, and Yuta pokes him in the eye and wins off a Busaiku knee in a pretty good matchup. We get a special preview of a Hangman Adam Page AEW story and documentary that will be airing on AEW's YouTube channel tomorrow. So it's not out yet, so you get a special preview here nonetheless. Now, we knew about this matchup last week. It was one that I guess I could say I was looking forward to. Shannon Moore versus Blake Christian. I've always enjoyed watching Shannon Moore, whether it's in WCW in 3 Count, in WWE as Matt Hardy's MFer, or in TNA and inking. And yes, I went through that whole catalog last week. It bears repeating because I've always enjoyed Shannon Moore. Didn't necessarily enjoy that he's going to be competing against Blake Christian, but it was an okay matchup. What the hell happens in it? We get a kick to the gut by Christian after the Code of Honor. More damage is done to Moore on the outside after a Lee Johnson distraction and a Christian screwdriver dive as well. We get a corkscrew moonsault by Moore that gets a 2 count, a springboard 450 by Blake that gets a close 2 count, a springboard moonsault to the outside by Moore with another Johnson distraction, and Christian hits the lethal injection in the ring and applies the last chancery to pick up the victory. So nice to see Shannon Moore on ROH this week. We get a QTV segment where they're about to watch a video that is talking about the Don Callis family, but never actually watch the video. They instead talk badly about the Don Callis family and how they are scared of Big Boom AJ, who still needs a tag partner for his future matchup with Roppongi Vice. When Don Callis appears and calls out QT and Aaron Solo, who was also there, but it was mainly just a setup for Roppongi Vice and Lance Archer to appear and attack the both of them. I think that was kind of funnier than the jokes that were being made. So now we have our last matchup of the episode, the Frat House taking on the Von Erichs. Carter and Ross. It was kind of odd when the matchup started because they have the same design pants. They have like long tights, blue long tights with white stripes on the side. But Carter and Ross start the matchup off. Jameson is involved early, distract the referee, and it gets Preston Vance to get involved and attack Ross. Ross is trapped in the corner at this point, with Marshall finally tagging in later on, taking Carter off of the top rope, taking out both Vance and Jameson on the outside as the Von Erichs win with simultaneous Iron Claws in the center of the ring to close out this episode of ROH. It wasn't a bad episode. It just wasn't as good as the previous couple. We were on a hot streak. It kind of simmered down this week. And again, they still have a lot of ROH stuff taped from when they were at Daly's place recently, and none of that is aired yet. I think it was taped. It had to be taped last week. So intriguing to see when that will be happening. So now we're here for the WrestleDream preview portion of the video. Surprisingly, this matchup is still going on. Might do a little bit of commentary. We got a GOT style pod driver, cradle pod driver. Shout out Jerry Lynn. Let's see if Moxley, he wants to do a test of strength after getting his finish. His special. Darby just hits him in the stomach. Back elbow. Pick him up. Hit him. Okay, now, all right. He's just kind of an idiot. He's going to win off of it, isn't he? Is it? All right. WrestleDream preview. I don't know. WrestleDream feels like the weird pay-per-view because it's in the middle of All In / All Out, which, All Out traditionally used to be the big pay-per-view. Darby wins. All Out used to be traditionally the big pay-per-view. And then you got Full Gear and World's End, where Full Gear used to be a big pay-per-view. Kind of feels a little bit overshadowed by World's End, which has the Continental Classic finals. If I'm being honest, wrestling, look, life-wise, maybe not. Wrestling-wise, let's just go ahead and get to the middle of November, December. That way we could get to the Continental, because that is mainly what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the Continental Classic because last year's was great. It'll be hard to top it, but not an impossible task. But again, in my opinion, like this pay-per-view feels like it is a lot of rematches. One matchup tonight on the show is a 5th matchup between 2 individuals. I just kind of feel like they're stuck. How to put this? I think they want to conclude a lot of things here. There might be a chance that some things extend into Full Gear. You get to the Continental Classic, you finish the Continental Classic, and then once we get to the new year, which is not that far away, but once we get to the new year, that's when new things will start picking up and starting up. But we got a lot of time before that. So here we are, WrestleDream 2025 Preview Predictions, as I just wasted 2 minutes going over my thoughts on the build. The Tailgate Brawl / the pre-show / the buy-in / the 0 hour. I don't know the proper name for it anymore. I know they said Tailgate Brawl and pre-show, and I was also aware that they said 0 hour. Regardless, as of right now, we have 4 matches. Eddie Kingston and Hook in action. I'm going to imagine that they pick up the victory. I would suggest, if y'all have been keeping up with the news, I was about to, while this is an ROH review, I've talked about La Faction Ingobernables, or the ROH Tag Team Champions, and Andrade, who is back in the company, and I thought there might be a chance that he ends up back there. But if y'all have been on wrestling Twitter today, you would know that is going to be a weird-ass task to potentially happen. But also, lost in the mix of it is that Roosh potentially is hurt. And this is all fantasy booking, all suggestion. I wouldn't mind Eddie Kingston and Hook getting the ROH tag team titles. I wouldn't mind them getting an AEW tag title shot, which might end up happening, but if they need a new team to be ROH tag team champions, I'll throw this group out there. But La Faction Ingobernables also has 2 other members. It might be some free bird rules. Just throwing out a suggestion. Maybe Rishi isn't even that hurt, and I just don't want Sammy to be ROH Tag Champion anymore. There, I said it. That's why I threw the suggestion out. That being said, for the prediction, I'm going with Kingston and Hook, obviously. Another tag team matchup. All these matches are tag team matchups on the pre-show. FTR versus Jet Speed. I think FTR need to pick up the victory after losing last month at All Out, and they need to pick up some more momentum. Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale versus Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne. I was mentioning that it just feels that a lot of these stories are repetitive, especially in the women's division. And again, it feels like we're not going to get a conclusion to a lot of them until we get to Blood and Guts, and that be the culmination of a lot of these women's stories. That being said, I want to pick Harley Cameron and Willow, but Megan Bayne very rarely loses, and so it makes this difficult. I'm going to go with my heart, not necessarily my brain here. I'm going with Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale. The last matchup, this one being a massive one. The Death Riders, the Bastard Pac, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta, taking on Roderick Strong and the Conglomeration. I did like how on Wikipedia it listed as Roderick Strong and the Conglomeration because he doesn't want to be listed as an official member. But Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Tomohiro Ishii, and Orange Cassidy. I think it would be important for the Death Riders to win because they have been on a hot streak. This is not necessarily a gimme bout for the Death Riders. I will say that. Something tells me to pick the Conglomeration and Roddy. I think it's going to set the tone for the rest of the show. I'm going to go with Roderick Strong and the Conglomeration winning here. Especially if on Dynamite, or it was the Collision portion because it was a 3-hour show. But this week's show, if Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly would have won, maybe it probably would have swayed my pick here, but I'm going to go with the Conglomeration and Roddy winning. Now, on the main card, a Tornado Trios bout, the Hurt Syndicate taking on The Demand, Ricochet, and the Gates of Agony. Going with the Hurt Syndicate here. I don't think I've picked against them in any predictions thus far, but I might be wrong there. But it wouldn't be surprising if The Demand won after losing on that multi-man tag on Title Tuesday. That was oh my god, I'm getting jumped by both Hardys. That's kind of funny. As I got hit in the middle of the air, too. Now they're fighting each other. Bro, everybody's in here. Bro, I keep getting hit in the air. Get him. Jamie Hayter versus Tekla. Again, I'm not going to say I've never pitched against Jamie Hayter, but I always hate picking against Jamie Hayter. So I'm going to go with Jamie Hayter to win here. And then I also imagine there'll probably be like a big brawl with the Triangle of Madness coming out. And then Queen Amanada is going to come out to save Jamie Hayter. And then somebody else might come out to also save because, that'd be 3 against 2. And then more build towards the Blood and Guts match happening. I don't remember the exact date. I think it's either the end of October or the beginning of November. I don't remember the exact date for Blood and Guts, but they at least announced when it's taking place. But later this year than normal. Jeff Hardy's just lingering around. Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks for $500,000. I'll say this. I know this is wrestling. I know we have to suspend our disbelief. If I was in a matchup for $500, I'm not going to say Tony Khan. I'm not going to say they're not legitimately paying the winners of this matchup and all these other matchups, because this matchup has been happening a lot recently. I'm not going to say they're not legitimately paying them $500,000. But if I'm in a matchup and they say it's for $500,000, I'm winning and I'm making sure I'm getting the money. I know, like, haha, Joe. No, money, you don't really mess around with money. So this should be an interesting bout, and I think that the Jurassic Express should win, especially fresh off of their reunion. I think it'd be important for them to win, and I think that the fans have been enjoying seeing the Young Bucks go back to not being the Young Bucks, being the broke version of the Young Bucks. So I'm going to go with the Jurassic Express winning this bout. And also, I will say this. I want to throw the suggestion out there. Jurassic Express versus Brodito is a matchup that I want to see for the tag team titles. So speaking of the tag team titles, I will admit that this is probably the most difficult match for me to talk about / predict, because on one hand, Konosuke Takeshita just won the IWGP World title, and Okada has very rarely lost in his time period in AEW. And they're both already champions. And the Don Callis family are looking to add gold, where, again, they've already done that this week with the IWGP title. And Bandito, doesn't have the easiest schedule. He's competing all over the world, defending the Ring of Honor World title. I appreciate him for that. Having a great tag team title run. I wouldn't be that surprised if Brodito lost. It's so hard. I don't want it to happen. That's why, I was struggling to say that. I also kind of feel that if they really wanted Okada and Takeshita to be tag champions already, that their initial matchup just would have been for the tag titles. Maybe that's just me overthinking it. I think the difficult part, the thing that makes this more difficult to predict, is Takeshita, both Okada and Takeshita already being champions. And so you don't necessarily expect them to lose in a matchup like this. It's not impossible for it to happen, but you understand the point that I'm getting at. So this is definitely one where I'm picking with my heart. I think I'm picking with my brain as well. I think my brain has kind of talked me into picking Brodito to retain. So I'm going with Brody King and Bandito to win this bout. Takeshita and Okada won. Would not be that surprised. Now it's the next matchup. TNT title matchup. Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher 5. I'm glad that this has been like 5 matches that have been back and forth, and it just hasn't been one-sided, because that legitimately be insanity. And I'm glad that Mark Briscoe actually has wins in this series. And y'all know that I love Mark Briscoe, and I want him to win. Again, I don't think it's a task. I don't think it's an impossible task for him to win. And maybe they put Kyle Fletcher in a different position to do something else. I'd love to see Mark Briscoe as TNT champion, but I don't expect it to happen. I just gave you all the reasons for Mark Briscoe to win, and I'm going to go the opposite route. It's kind of how these things go sometimes. But I'm going to go with Kyle Fletcher to win, even though I would appreciate it if it was Mark Briscoe. Women's title matchup. Toni Storm versus Kris Statlander versus Toni Storm, because the champion needs to be said first, which, goes to show that Kris Statlander has been champion for a long time. Oh my God, we got a WrestleDream preview right now. Samoa Joe just came out with a football and just throwing it at him. I'm going to go with Statlander to win. She just won the title. It might be time to... I will say, because I see that people are saying Toni Storm needs to do something else, and I understand it and agree with it. I don't necessarily know what that means. Maybe it means the women's tag team titles that are eventually coming. They were showcased. I'll admit, I'll be the last one to say, I did not like that it's the same design as the men ones. They just put a women's title plate over it. I thought, we could get something creative going on, but that wasn't the case, I guess. But regardless, I'm going to go with Statlander to win this matchup. As now, we need to talk about the men's world title matchup. Oh, this is a funny last opponent. Someone that's always in the news. Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe. Surprisingly, Samoa Joe has been... I don't know where I was going with that. Not the first time that Samoa Joe has been the challenger in an AEW World Title matchup, as he faced MJF twice, and he won the second time around to become the AEW World Champion. And I would love it if that happened again, but I don't necessarily think that would be the case. I'm going to go with Hangman to win. Would love it if Joe won and was double champion again, because he's still 1/3 of the trio's tag team champions. I also appreciate that we're getting something else, because the last two Hangman pay-per-view title defenses were against people that he had already faced in the year. So I'm glad that we're getting a new matchup here. As we have one more matchup to talk about. I don't think it's been confirmed as the main event, but it definitely should be the main event. Almost a year in the over a year in the making. Jon Moxley taking on Darby Allin. I think that a lot of us pictured in our mind that once Jon Moxley became the AEW World Champion at WrestleDream last year, that Darby Allin would be the person to take it off of him. And we had a bumpy-ass road, and it was something that we were wrong about, because it ended up being Hangman Adam Page, obviously, with the help of Darby Allin. And I think that a lot of us have also talked ourselves into if Darby was to defeat Jon Moxley, that would be a world, and I'm saying it in quotations, a world title level win. It would be the biggest moment in Darby's career, because it is somebody that he's faced time and time again and is yet to beat. If it doesn't happen here, I don't know. I don't think it'll ever happen, obviously. And I kind of thought that, hey, going back to last year's WrestleDream, somewhat of a similar story going on with Danielson, where Danielson never beat Moxley. And we got to last year's main event, and I was like, boom, we're going to get Danielson still as world champion. He's going to beat Moxley. He's going to finally, and nope. It was the end of Danielson. We have not seen him compete since then. So I think it's essential to close this chapter. In this chapter, they might even... something's getting set on fire. I don't know. I don't want it, necessarily to be a person, but there's a high chance a person gets set on fire here. I'm going Darby to win. I saw someone suggest on Twitter that Darby's going to try to set Wheeler Yuta on fire, and Moxley's not going to care, but he's going to try to set Marina Shafir on fire, and then that's when he would quit and give himself up for that. So I wouldn't be that surprised if that's what happened, but I think it is essential that Darby Allin wins this matchup. If not, I think that we'd really wasted a year. So we'll see what the hell happens. I'm not going to waste y'all's time anymore. I do appreciate y'all for watching all this. Hopefully you have a safe weekend and enjoy whatever you're doing. I know my Tennessee Volunteers play Alabama Saturday, the same time as this show, so it's going to be a crazy-ass weekend. October to December, kind of always crazy because football's going on. You got to prioritize football while it's happening. So that's my thought on that. And, hey, this week, NBA is back. Woo! So I'm kind of excited for that. Once it actually is happening, games are actual. I don't know if the preseason has been going on for the last month, but once actual games are happening, that's when I'll be able to actually throw it about it. So enough of me going on and wasting y'all's time. I appreciate y'all watching again. Cheap plug. Watch my GM on WWE 2K25. I'm legitimately having a lot of fun doing that and bringing that back to the channel. I don't know when I have a plan on when the next episode will be. I'm going to try to have it done on Monday so y'all can enjoy it. That way I'm not bothered on the weekend and trying to rush it during the weekend, but I'm not making any promises. But there should be a new episode Monday. So I just told y'all I was done 2 minutes ago and I kept talking. So that's kind of what I normally do. So appreciate y'all watching. Last time I'll say it. I'm out for now, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.